Alright guys, I'm going to show you how to do a 2-inch lift on any Honda four-wheeler for about $5, and it's really easy. What you got to get is a 1.5-inch Schedule 40 PVC coupler, a 1.5-inch Schedule 40 piece PVC pipe, cut you a little piece of it, stick it in here. Alright, stick a piece in both sides of it. So you're going to cut that off, and you're going to put a piece on that side and cut it off. Glue it in there real good with some PVC cement for extra strength, and then you cut right along it so it ends up being flush. Your final product, what you're looking for, is this, right? Nice and thick, 1.5-inch spacer, really strong. The glue looks kind of nasty, but it'll be fine painting it black. This is the perfect size to fit over this. See how that doesn't jiggle around, and it's wide enough for the factory spring retainer to sit right on and give it full contact? This is what keeps your spring lined up. Most aftermarket spacers, you can't reuse this. And that means your spring's going to get all freaking crooked and wonk-eyed. Let me show you what the aftermarket spacers do. These are like the nice, expensive ones my Catbus lift came with. They knock around, right? They fit really loose, get full of mud, go to one side, make your spring get all funny. And you really can't use these anymore because they would sit down and they're crooked, right? So the trick really is to use this PVC. This is more than strong enough. That's never going to fail. PVC is really strong on its own. The fact that it's laminated with glue in between makes it super solid. If you're doing it on the Rubicon, what I'm actually doing is this is a front shock off of a 2009 Rubicon. It's adjustable and everything. You put it on the back with a 1.5-inch spacer. It's like 3.5-inch lift. I'll probably break CV joints. I don't really care. We'll see. I'll let you guys know how it goes. So yeah, you just drop this over like that. Drop on your retainer. It's kind of a tight fit. See how nice that fits? Nothing jiggles around. There's nowhere for dirt to get in. Now here's an interesting concept. Okay, so this is a 1.5-inch spacer. That's going to give you more than 1.5 inches of lift, because if you drop this point on the arm down 1.5 inches, this is going to go down more than 1.5 inches. It's called related rates. Also, preload is not linear. So if I add 1.5 inches of preload here, that doesn't mean I'm going to make this point 1.5 inches farther away at full sag or anything, because the more this arm is at an angle, the less its dot product is. In other words, there's less of a torque arm for this shock to work against. So the higher you go, the easier it is to hold up the bike. Imagine if you put the arm 90 degrees down. It would take zero force from the shock to hold the arm 90 degrees down, right? So that concept holds true. The closer you get from 90 to 0 degrees, the more force it takes for this shock to support the weight of the bike. So when you do a lift, anytime you do a lift and you make the arm go down harder, you also made it stiffer. You made it easier for your spring to hold the bike up. So because of that, there isn't like a way I can say, okay, this 1.5-inch spacer will give you 2.5 inches of lift. It's going to depend on your spacer lift, your down travel, how much wear is on the bike spring itself, and a couple other components like how much force is in your bushings, right? Those bushings in each of the A-arms, I mean, you figure there's 3 on each side in the rear. That's a good bit of force. So all those things come into play. The best thing to do is just trial and error. You can cut this spacer down thinner and thinner and thinner with that. If you ever wanted to make it longer, you could leave this part hanging off and cut it right here. As long as you put this part against this bottom shock piece, it'll work fine. It'll be plenty strong enough. I do not recommend putting the skinny part against this though. See how that's a perfect fit? You really want that full support here. This is a pretty thin piece of metal. You don't want this thing like bending over and your shock coming, your spring coming down over it on the trail. But I don't think you'll ever need more than a 1.5-inch spacer. This is a 1.5-inch spacer, right? Exact same height. And this thing made it ride extremely stiff. The only reason I'm doing 1.5 inch on the rear is because the spring rate on the factory front TRX Foreman Rubicon 2009 is softer than the rear on my 2015. But yeah, if you have any questions, just please comment. This is the best and by far the cheapest way to lift a Honda. Yeah, it'll make it ride a little bit stiffer, but that's what you want in the mud.